Hello, welcome to Inside Gaming Daily for Friday!
What that means.
Yeah!
Yes! Yes! Woo! Yeah, it's Friday, everybody. Why not celebrate the weekend by cracking open a cold one with the boys?
By the boys, we mean two giant, eternally jiggling anime boobs in your favorite new PlayStation game.
God bless. Well, we got some bad news for you guys. I'm sorry to say. Sony's getting all weird and sensory when it comes to sexy games on the PlayStation 4.
No, they're cracking down on Japanese girl games and even more in mainstream AAA stuff. They're doing stuff like, I hate this. They're censoring butts. Come on, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Everybody loves butts.
Yeah, the year of our Lord 2019, when the crack done cracked. Sad day. Yes, even the humble rear end is not safe in this new campaign of censorship Sony has been on. This story is a real bummer about how Sony suddenly feels the need to police content on a platform level, rather than just letting rating system and individual developers decide, and us as consumers, decide for ourselves what kind of content we want to see, and we want to see butt cracks.
All the time.
Up and down, full thing.
All right, let's get ready to learn about some self-censorship. Brian, hit us with it.
Yeah, so the Wall Street Journal reports that Sony has implemented stricter rules regarding all sexual content. And so anything they consider sexually explicit, they are apparently toning down. And they're doing that in a whole variety of ways.
Yeah, they're slathering girls in extra steam to cover up those luscious lumps. As for why they're doing it, Sony gave all kinds of reasons. The company said that it has a growing concern about how women are depicted in games, somewhat valid, and that these new rules were a response to the rise of the hashtag #MeToo movement.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of weird though, because Me Too was primarily about sexual and workplace harassment. But I understand, it's a broader movement that's happening right now.
Yeah, but there has been precedent for this. Companies like Riot Games have been sued for such things, harassment that is. However, here's the weird thing. We commonly make the argument that violence in games doesn't translate to violence in real life.
That's a good point.
So we're kind of flipping on that now to say that sexuality or objectification in games leads to objectification in real life.
They're two different subjects.
They absolutely are, right. But still, the comparisons are hard to avoid when we're so vociferously defending violence on one hand, but also kind of thumbing our nose at sexuality on the other. It's kind of strange.
Well, Sony gave more reasons. Brian, tell us more reasons.
A spokeswoman also told the Wall Street Journal that Sony put the guidelines in place so that creators can offer well-balanced content on the platform. It's kind of interesting. She also said they did it so gaming, quote, does not inhibit the sound growth and development of young people.
What?
So the old protecting the kids trope.
So elsewhere in the story, a company official told the Journal that, quote, Sony is concerned the company could become a target of legal and social action.
Money!
Ding, ding, ding! Yeah, of course. It's always
money.
So yeah, what they're worried about is getting sued or having a Twitter mob descend on them. But this also seems weird because people have sued developers before, and high-profile lawsuits are typically about violence, not sex.
Yeah, you might remember the infamous Strickland versus Sony case back in 2005 when the infamous game-hating lawyer Jack Thompson, I remember good old Jack Thompson,
that guy.
He took Sony of America to court over the shooting of 3 police officers.
Yeah, somehow, according to Thompson, this was all GTA Vice City's fault, but the Alabama Supreme Court wasn't buying it.
Yeah, that's true.
The court sided with Sony and the First Amendment. God bless America and its giant anime jiggling titties. We need to add some of those onto the Statue of Liberty. She'd be extra free.
So if Sony is worried about lawsuits, it seems like cutting down on violence would be the most obvious route to take.
Yeah, but obviously nobody's talking about that, though. These are video games. Violence is how we do everything. Name the last game that didn't have, like, shoot as a button or many buttons.
It's true.
Or stab. So regardless, Sony is taking steps to censor not just sex, but just human body parts in general from games. We saw an example of this very recently, right, Brian? Oh, police guy, tell me you're still there. Oh, Okay, well, you know what? We'll deal with that later. We saw an example of this recently in Devil May Cry 5, where in a Western release, light beams were used to hide an exposed butt. Poor Trish's exterior was shined away. But the Japanese version still showed the full moon, though. It's kind of weird.
All right.
Apparently, Sony was the only one with a butt aversion, too. The Xbox One and PC versions weren't censored at all. But a later update, which added the Bloody Palace, seemed to bring the full butts back to the PS4 version.
All right, that's good. I see a bad moon rising indeed. A little reference, literally nobody will get there.
Yeah.
It's not just Devil May Cry 5, though. Japanese games that feature youngish girls in adult situations have come under increasing censorship from Sony, which probably they should have.
Last year, Sony banned the sexual roguelike dungeon crawler Omega Labyrinth Z from releasing in the West. If you want an unashamed trailer, that is it. Your tits get bigger as you go through the dungeon, is what I'm saying. Anyway.
Also last year, publisher Xseed Games said it would delay the adult game Senran Kagura Burst renewal on PS4 to remove the game's intimacy mode. What does that mean, Lauren?
Oh, Bruce, I'm glad you asked. So intimacy mode, it's a dressing room where you can summon 2 disembodied hands to yank on a girl's little jiggly bits. They really enjoy
An
that.
of-age girl?
Yes, always mostly of age, yes.
Oh my gosh. Nekopara Volume 1 released on Switch last summer with a rating of mature 17+, but in the PS4 version, fans noticed changes like extra steam in bath scenes, as well as the removal of a slider that, in other versions, made the characters more jiggly.
That's a feature.
I mean,
right?
It is, but again, are they of age?
Probably.
Japan, they have a different culture over there.
Yeah, of course. So God bless the fans that do this kind of research. Thank you for
You mean you?
fighting in those trenches. Yes, I was going for a vagina reference, but yeah, you're right. So sadly, it seems like Sony is trying to clean up games, even though we're adults and aren't going to burst into flames if we see a tit now and then. Of course, Sony's hardly the first company to censor video games. Other companies have had their windows of intense censorship. Nintendo was legendary back in the day for not letting anything racy on the Nintendo or SNES. Like, they censored everything: sexuality, religious imagery, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it famously replaced blood with sweat in the first Mortal Kombat game back in the early 90s. You had to get a Sega Genesis and a cheat code to see the real video game blood. I remember that.
Anyway, ironically, Nintendo these days is actually more relaxed about sex stuff than Sony is. What a weird flip.
That's weird.
Yeah, you can see full boobs on the Switch these days.
What?
It's cool. Yeah, it's in the form of a really tedious match 3 with weird Sin City like comic book style cutscenes. But
I didn't know that.
boobs!
It also trains young gamers to endure hours and hours of tedium just to see a boob. One. So it's really not so separated from real life in the end.
Zing! Gotcha. Anyway, we're going to have a whole generation of boys who got the first boners playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2. My God, that game is ridiculous. Like, you're passed out on the ground and she's leaning over you and your eyes open to 2 giant anime boobs in your face.
Now place your hand on my chest.
And that's a Nintendo published game. So yeah, damn these games and their kids. When I was your age, all we had to masturbate to was Princess Leia in her slave uniform. So.
Which I did. Nintendo told the Wall Street Journal that they're fine with sexually explicit games so long as they get a rating from a group like the ESRB, which is how the system is supposed to work.
Yeah,
you get
right?
that rating, and then parents don't allow their kids to buy those games.
Of course, there's the adults only rating, but no console has ever released an adults only rated game.
Oh.
You got to go to the PC to get the really good / awful stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say awful is probably the more appropriate word there.
Yeah.
Which, given what's going on with Sony, it's definitely a mark in Steam's favor. They've opted for a more libertarian, anything goes sort of attitude, which you've seen bite them in the ass the last few months.
Like Bruce mentioned, that does mean that the store is choked with tons of literal trash, but also means that responsible adults can handle seeing a boob now and then, can make a decision about the entertainment they want, which is supposedly how the system's supposed to work. Yeah, as for Sony, it wouldn't give any details about the guidelines and declined requests to talk about them in detail.
Which is actually how a lot of censorship works.
Yep.
It's purposefully vague, so you're really never quite sure where the line is. I think that's kind of what Sony wants.
That unfortunately encourages developers to err on the side of caution. It costs a lot of time and money to submit a game for approval and have it bounce back. Our titties are going away is what I'm saying.
Yeah, at any rate, we're sure developers aren't happy about this. One even quit.
Kenichiro Takaki, who created the Senran Kagura series and who is a hero, left developer Marvelous because of all the restrictions on the content.
Wow.
He said that the recent censorship trends will have a, quote, chilling effect on games.
You want me to do this segue, right? Chilling, like Sub-Zero? I guess we're segueing into Mortal Kombat.
Yeah,
for
we
some
are.
reason. Okay, all right. So we've seen it also affect the development of Mortal Kombat 11, which, as a franchise, is well known for its blood and gore.
Yeah, boom. The game's art director said he's taking a, quote, more mature and respectful design approach in an interview with Polygon, especially in the design of the female character.
That's good.
Now, is he doing that because he doesn't want to get banned by Sony? It's hard to say. It's a possibility, but it is sort of the environment we're in right now, which isn't explicitly a bad thing.
Which is hilarious because Mortal Kombat's getting not censored on YouTube, but YouTube's demonetizing them because of the violence, but not because of the sex.
Specifically the red blood. If you have matches between characters that don't bleed red, totally fine.
It's so weird.
Yeah, YouTube's great. God bless America.
Again, this is why you don't want platform holders like Sony issuing guidelines like this. These ripple effects on developers is why censorship sucks. Yeah, a lot of stuff is juvenile and gratuitous, but you also want to be in the business of telling artists and developers what they can and cannot do.
Yeah, it is your platform, it is your right. It's just
Well, it doesn't sit
down a
well.
good
It
path.
doesn't sit well with the people that are making the games.
Yeah, that's true. All that said, let's be honest here. We're coming off of nearly 2 decades of wall-to-wall female sex objects in games.
Yeah.
Little variety is not a bad thing.
I would agree. Absolutely.
And especially with Mortal Kombat 11, I actually really like the character designs they have. Yeah. I've seen enough battle bikinis and like mid-boob exposure to last me a number of years, I'm okay with a little more respectful clothing in that regard.
Still, the ideal is that those decisions are entirely in the hands of the creators, and it's up to the market to decide what they do and don't want to see. Obviously, the market right now in 2019 is a little different. I think that's kind of what Sony's trying to go towards that trend, or at least beat it.
Definitely, they're trying to solve problems before they start. So yeah, time will tell if we see more butts get removed, but at the moment, that's just kind of the trend we're in.
I gotta say, butts seem like the easiest. For me, that's like the best one to show because everybody's got a butt.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone's got a round butt with a butt crack. No big deal. Show a butt. Who cares? Boobs, I get. Vagina, penis, I understand. Everybody's got a butt. Yeah. Right?
Free the butt.
We've had games with underage sex and school shooters get the axe from Steam, but the latest controversy bait is called Rape Day. And it's about as subtle as you think for a game called that.
Once again, it's opened up a can of worms for Valve, which has had all sorts of controversies over what kinds of games it lets on Steam.
Last year, Valve said that it was going to allow pretty much every kind of game on Steam and leave it up to the audience to decide what is or isn't offensive.